I moved with my two young daughters to the Baltic region of Northern Europe in 1995 after I was suddenly widowed. I was trying to figure out who I was and what our new small family was going to look like. In 1998, I met my partner Egils, whom I later moved in with, and we lived near the banks of the beautiful Daugava River in the medieval city of Riga, Latvia.
I see in your eyes a promise.
We made our home in the upper half of a large Tsar Russian house. We spent years restoring this previously devastated property and making it into our dream home. We saved as many original aspects of the old house as possible, and we watched the once dark, desolate space become flooded with light. Our home was a warm, welcoming mix of eras and cultures, much like our family. And it was all within biking distance of the Baltic Sea. We were kept busy raising our two daughters, traveling, exploring, growing.
I cannot make you
We enjoyed a beautiful, simple life filled with adventures and time spent together.
Such a delicate thing, but fly away.
And the girls grew into strong, confident young women, and it seemed within the blink of an eye our daughters were grown and living on their own. Freed from the day-to-day responsibilities of raising a family, Egils and I embarked on the next phase of our lives, exploring nature, small villages, and interesting architecture on our own. But a nagging sense of the unsustainability of our lives in the Baltic region began to haunt us.
Fly away, little pretty bird.
And when our lives did eventually collapse, it was so swift and all-encompassing that it was beyond shocking. We spent less than a month planning our departure, then stuffed our small car and headed west to begin a new life. When I look back on that time, it was miraculous, but definitely not the way I expected a miracle to look. Leaving our city, our home, our friends, finding keepers for our cats, and heading west was one of the lowest moments in my life. But I knew in my heart that we had no choice if we were to survive. Egils wore a pin that said dream, and I wore one that said love from the time we left Latvia until we reached our final destination. I suppose we were trying to keep it light and positive. In fact, neither of us were strangers to starting over. Between us, we'd survived divorces, widowhood, the collapse of an empire, and bankruptcy. But while we were traveling, exploring, and raising our daughters, things had changed. Life was different now. We weren't young people embarking on an exciting new adventure. We'd become people of a certain age. The entire prospect of reinventing our world was terribly daunting, maybe slightly exciting. But I'd been here and done all this before. Different scenario, different players. My warrior self was tired. This was one of those miracles that didn't look like a miracle at all. Scotland was the country my great-grandparents left in hopes of making a better life for themselves in America. Now, 3 days after leaving Latvia, I was returning to the home of my ancestors with very little understanding of the actual culture. Upon arriving in Scotland, we were taken in by a lovely Scottish family. We'd spoken by phone and met online after an initial chance meeting, but never face-to-face until the day we moved in. They graciously offered us a room for a month or so. That was 3 years ago. I think it's safe to say we are now family. One big, completely unplanned, frequently chaotic,
Oh,
intercultural family.
how can you ask me again?
Meeting such gracious and loving strangers, merging into a family, sharing the good as well as the hard times, has truly been a miracle that looked like what I think a miracle should look like.
I will once again tomorrow. Well, I got a letter all day long.
We struggled to find meaningful employment, but ended up taking whatever came our way. And since we were the immigrants, these jobs generally included very long hours, a lot of traveling, and very low pay. We frequently felt hopeless and certainly unappreciated in those early days. But at some point fairly early on, we realized that although the freelance jobs paid poorly and were rather mindless, we were being paid to travel this beautiful countryside. When we opened our eyes to the tremendous upside to this work, all expense paid travel, we became aware of the magic and miracles that lived within every moment and constantly danced just beyond our camera's lens. We love Scotland as a holiday destination, but now we were falling in love, that kind of love that heals and sustains. It was a magical, miraculous, inspirational country that surrounded us. We explored it tirelessly and day by day began to understand this new world we lived within, if not entirely understanding the new culture, and we documented our travels with our camera.
That's the reason why I seem so far away today. Let me tell you that I love you, that I think about you all the time. Caledonia, you're calling me, and now I'm going home. For if I should become
I didn't immediately receive a UK visa, so for about 3.5 years I was traveling back and forth between the UK and America. So one afternoon, as I was packing to return to the USA once again, feeling sad, questioning if or when I would ever get my visa, I decided to take a break and go for a drive to clear my head. After driving down a small back road, I parked my car, grabbed my camera, and walked down to a creek to have some alone time with nature. I sat down on a large rock, and suddenly this crane landed and walked within 10 feet of me, and just stood there, looking around, and then back at me from time to time. I felt like the bird was telling me that all would be well, which of course it was. But I considered this another magical moment caught by my camera.
somewhere with the wind. Let me tell you that I love you, that I think about you all the time. Caledonia, you're calling me, and now I'm going home.
I returned to Scotland within a few months and continued on my most magical and miraculous journey, traveling and photographing the incredibly rugged as well as the blissfully graceful Scottish countryside. As well as photographing and exploring picturesque villages, lochs, and castles.
Well, they've withered now, they've gone. But I'm steady thinking, my way is clear, and I know what I will do tomorrow. When the hands have shaken and the kisses flowed, well, I will.
And of course, no one can live in Scotland without falling in love with the sheep that roam freely.
Let me tell you that I love you, but I think about you all the time. Caledonia, you're calling me, and now I'm going home. For if I should become a stranger, know that it would make me more than sad. Caledonia's been everything I've ever had.
Our first year in our new home, we watched the landscape slip from summer into autumn and then winter, changing monumentally while remaining precisely as it had been for centuries. Our beautiful surroundings were in their endless cycle of living, dying, and being reborn, as I personally believe we all are. And even within our individual lifetimes, we shift, morph, and reinvent ourselves, some more than others. The first winter was breathtaking. It was also the beginning of my understanding of the wild, untamed Scottish culture. Clearly, only the strongest, most fiercely independent members of humanity could have survived this dramatic, harsh, unyielding, beautiful corner of planet Earth. And as I began respecting this culture, I began respecting my people, who had left this country more than 100 years ago. And I began seeing myself differently. I came through that first winter feeling stronger. My inner warrior had awakened, or perhaps was awakened by my ancestors.
Rose wild and dreary, loud the iron, yet the clank and cry of who lets Max Meary. Oh, are you sleeping, Maggie? Oh, are you sleeping, Maggie? Let me in, for loud the linn is rowing over the wall of Craggy. Abune my breath, I darna speak, for fear arouse your walker right, Daddy. Calls the blast upon my cheek.
I'm drawn to the stones of Scotland, whether old stone homes, standing stones, ancient ruins, or cemeteries. They've watched history unfold. They've beheld great victories and horrendous defeats. Silently, they've witnessed acts of bravery and heroism, as well as cowardice and malevolence. They've seen it all. I believe these stones resonate with all that has been and all that will be in this magical, mystical kingdom. The fact that they predate history itself and were already ancient when my ancestors walked this soil gives me a sense of permanence and connection to all that has come before me. I'm also drawn to the sense of timelessness and the connection with bygone eras that is so important to the Scottish people. These reminders offer stability and consistency within this society, who many believe is comprised of ruffians and rogues. These are people who have, down through the ages, maintained their identity at great cost, followed their own rules and creeds, followed their hearts, but they've always honored their past. Reminders of Scotland's past struggles are everywhere: grave sites, monuments, castles, and ruins.
I don't know if you can see the changes that have come over me in these last few days. I've been afraid that I might drift away, so I've been telling old stories, singing songs that make me think about where I came from, and that's the reasons why I seem so far away today. Oh, and let me tell you that I love you, that I think about you all the time. Caledonia, you're calling me, and now I'm going home. But if I should become a stranger, you know that it would make me more than sad. Caledonia's been everything I've ever had. Oh, and I have moved and kept on moving, proved the points that I needed proving, lost the friends that I needed
When I look around at this beautiful country, I'm constantly reminded of what generation after generation of Scots went through to get us here at this moment in time. But I'm also reminded what Egils and I went through to get us here at this moment in our lives. And I'm honestly thankful for all of the sacrifice and struggle that led us here. All visas are in order. We're working and living in a small Scottish village, happy and healthy.
And now I'm going home. But if I should become a stranger, you know that it would make me more than sad.
In many ways, this journey has been a long succession of miracles, most of which didn't look the way I wanted them to look as they unfolded, but I guess that's life. Albert Einstein said there are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. It's actually a choice.
Now I'm sitting